Okay everyone, Chris here with another lesson on reading. So today we're going to focus on multiple choice questions. Not the most difficult questions that appear on the reading test, but they're very, very common. Also, sometimes with multiple choice questions, a little bit of complacency can set in because they're probably the question that you see most often on tests. I'm sure throughout your whole education you've seen multiple choice questions, and so people can sort of assume that they're easy or they know how to do them, and that complacency can cause you to lose marks. Also on the reading test, you want to be focusing as much on the easier questions as the hard questions, because they are the low-hanging fruit. And it's best to focus on the low-hanging fruit first to make sure that you are 100% sure about those before you really worry about the more advanced questions. So let's have a look at these, and we're also going to have a demo at the end. So these are on both the academic and general IELTS reading papers. Your job is to simply choose the correct answer from a list of possible choices. You already know how this works, I'm assuming. Here are the skills tested for these types of questions. So for every single reading question, it's really important that you understand the sub-skills, the micro skills that are being tested. So understanding the main ideas contained in a text is the first thing that they're going to be testing. So do you understand the main idea within a paragraph? Ability to scan for specific information, so you know the different reading skills: skimming, scanning, looking for specific information, close reading. This is testing that. And reading in detail for understanding. So the most overlooked skill is actually this, and this is the skill that's going to enable you to identify the correct answer. And differentiating between two or more possible answers. Often you will get, for multiple choice, you'll get two answers that look the same, and you have to differentiate between those two or more that look the same. So here are some common problems that we see on reading multiple choice questions. Reading the text before looking at the questions. It's important you look at the questions first. Don't look at the text. If you've already looked at the text because you're looking at other questions, that's fine. But once you see multiple choice, focus on the questions first. Not answering the questions at all. This is a huge mistake because let's say there's A, B, C. Even if you guess the answer, you've still got a 33.33% chance of getting it correct. So not answering these questions at all, you're throwing away, a third. You've got a third of a chance of getting them. So always at least guess them, but we don't want to just guess them. We want to make an educated guess. I'm being tricked by distractors such as qualifying words. I'm sure that you've heard me talk about qualifying words a lot before, and not reading the questions or text carefully. So then, in other words, trying to do it too quickly or not having attention to detail. That is something that some people are great with attention to detail. Other people are not. I think that's just something that's hardwired into your brain. But if you're one of those people that doesn't really pay much attention to detail and you're really good at skimming and getting the general idea of things, looking at the bigger picture rather than the little details, this might be something you need to focus on. Okay, so here's some advice for multiple choice questions. Number one, read the questions before the text. We've already mentioned this. Always write an answer. It is better to guess than not answer at all. Again, you've got a 33% chance of getting it correct if it's 3. Try to narrow the choices down to 2 or 3 out of, let's say you get 4 possibilities. Sometimes it is easy to eliminate ones that are definitely not the answer, and then that will increase your chances of getting the correct answer. If you're unsure of the meaning, try and rephrase the words in your own words. Try and rephrase the answers in your own words, and this makes it easy to do. Be aware of distractors. So, for example, let me give you 2 sentences. Some people like pizza. All people like pizza. So some people like pizza, all people like pizza. Those are 2 very similar sentences but have completely different meanings. All people love pizza, that means that 100% of people. Some people eat pizza. We don't know what percentage, but it's not nowhere near 100%. So those little distractors, those little words that you can change that change the whole meaning of a sentence, you need to be aware of those. Don't panic if you don't know anything about the topic. You're not expected to know about the topic. This is especially true for the academic paper. You might get a text on, I don't know, organic chemistry or archaeology or something that you've never studied before, you know nothing about it. It's not testing your knowledge of organic chemistry or archaeology, it's testing your reading skills and your English ability. So don't worry if you don't get something you don't understand. And try and predict the correct answer before you read the text. This is really, really important. So don't read the text, look at the list of questions, understand what they mean, and then try and predict the answer before you look at the text. Carefully read all of the options before marking your final decision, because some of them might look very, very similar, and the answers will be in the same order as the text. So this is good for strategy. This is good for time management. If you see the answer, you're not going to have to go back and read before that. It'll be in the same order as the text. Okay, so I'm going to give you a strategy now, and this is quite a detailed strategy, so don't worry if you don't understand this strategy immediately. And the key with the strategy is not just reading it or listening to me, it is putting it into action. It is taking action to apply it to practice tests, and that's how you're going to learn. So, number one, read the questions carefully. The first thing you should do is read the questions and spend time, invest the time in it to understanding what they mean. Number two, skim the text to get the general meaning. So after you finish reading the questions, then look at the text and just skim it. All right, you don't have to read everything in detail, that will come later. Number three, underline any keywords in the question and think about any synonyms that might appear in the text. So go back to the questions, read the choices and underline any keywords. Think about the differences in meaning between the different choices. Number five, predict the correct answer. So you're not really looking at the text in detail yet. All right, so it's look at the questions, then look at the text, skim it, then go back to the questions, do these things, predict the answer, then go back to the text. Read the text and using keywords and synonyms, locate the part containing the answers. Okay, so now what you're doing is you're scanning. You're scanning for specific information. So we've paid a lot of attention, a lot of detail to the question, the choices, the different options themselves. Then we're skimming the text, and then we're going back, looking at the options in detail. Now we're going and we're scanning the text. 7, read that part of the text very carefully, thinking about the difference in meanings. So now we're looking in detail at that part. So we've located the correct place, now we're looking in detail. Number 8, don't only think about which options are correct, but think about how the other options are wrong. Very important. I'll read that again. Don't only think about which options are correct, but think about how the other options are wrong, and that will help you eliminate wrong options. Number 9, go back and read the question again, then mark off your final choice. Okay, so what we're going to do now is we're going to apply this to a real question. Okay, so let's go. Okay, so here's a real sample task. I got this from Cambridge English website, I think. So it's a real question. So what we do, we don't pay attention to the text. It's going to get lost in that. What we need to do is we need to look at these options first and understand these options. So it's important that we read these and understand these before we look at the text again. Okay. So research completed in 1982 found that in the United States, soil erosion reduced the productivity of farmland by 20%, was almost as severe as in India and China, was causing significant damage to 20% of farmland, could be reduced by converting cultivated land to meadow or forest. Okay, so the two that I'm worried about here is A and C. Why am I worried about these two? Because these are very similar. So often what they'll do is they'll test your ability to understand the difference between two very similar options, and these seem to be very similar. was causing significant damage to 20% of farmland, reduced the productivity of farmland. So really the difference between significant damage and reduced productivity. You could argue that those are kind of the same thing. I'm not saying that it will be A or C, but you want to be aware of that. India and China. So these India and China, it's very easy to find these in the text because there's no other way to say India. There's no other way to say China. India is India. China is China. So it'll be quite easy to find the location based on those. Could be reduced by converting cultivated land. Okay, so this is talking about reducing it. 1982. So it's going to be quite easy to find this because 1982 is 1982. There's no other way of saying it. And I understand what these mean. Okay. So now let's go on to the second one. By the mid-80s, farmers in Denmark used 50% less fertilizer than Dutch farmers, used twice as much fertilizer as they had in 1960, applied fertilizer much more frequently, more than doubled the amount of pesticide they used. Okay, so fertilizer. It's either going to be, and this is about pesticide, which is slightly different. So the answer is either going to be A, B, or C, and it's going to be telling the difference between these three, or it's going to be pesticide because that's the unique one, the odd one out, if you like. So it'll be interesting to find Dutch farmers. So it might be Holland, Denmark. It could be, say, Danish farmers or something like that. So that'll be pretty easy to find too, because we're looking for Denmark, Holland, the Netherlands. Holland's strange because it has two different names: Netherlands, Holland, and then we have Dutch. Okay, so which one of the following increased in New Zealand after 1984? Okay, so New Zealand. So it's going to be quite easy to find these because it's different countries. Farm incomes, use of fertilizer, overstocking, farm diversification. So these are four very different things. So we won't really need to look at the difference between two or three of them. So obviously it's taken me a long time to talk this through, but once you get used to doing a few of these, it becomes natural, and you'll be able to do this without thinking. So we've read the questions carefully, we've thought about them, and don't worry if you don't understand, overstocking. I don't know what overstocking means. I have an idea what it means, but I've never heard of overstocking before. I'm not a farmer. I live on a farm, but I'm not a farmer. So don't worry if you see something that you don't 100% understand. Okay, now we need to skim the text to get the general meaning. So how I'm going to do that is I'm going to start off and look at topic sentences. All these activities have damaging environmental impacts, for example. Okay, so this tells me that this paragraph is about environmental impacts. And then they look at examples of that. Activities. So what activities are they talking about? Land clearing, fertilizers. I'm talking about the United States, India and China, America. Okay. So question one is probably here, somewhere here. Government policies have frequently compounded the environmental damage that farming. So this is talking about government policy. Okay. Next one, late 1980s and early 1990s, some efforts were made to reduce farm subsidies. So the impact of reducing farm subsidies. In less enlightened countries and in the European Union, the trend has been to reduce rather than eliminate subsidies. To introduce new payments and credit. Okay, so different ways of influencing farmers other than subsidies. Okay, cool. So we've got an idea of what that means. Don't spend too much time. I mean, topic sentences are going to help you understand what it's about. then a brief look through it is going to help you understand what it's about. Okay, so let's have a look and think about keywords and synonyms. Research completed in 1982, so it's going to be, research could be a study or data or university research or academic research or something like that. So that's the thing that 1982 would be the thing that I would look out for there. By the mid 1980s, we've already mentioned Denmark, Danish, farmers could be agriculture or farm workers or something like that. Dutch, Holland, Netherlands, things like that. Number 12, which one of the following increased in New Zealand? New Zealand is New Zealand, 84, that's going to help us locate it. Farm incomes, how much they earned, money, stuff like that. Fertilizer, I can't think of another way to say, I can think of another way to say fertilizer, but it's not, it's rude. Overstocking, too much livestock, or too many livestock, or something like that. Diversification, could be diverse, different types of things. What you don't want to do when you're thinking of synonyms is, spend way too much time thinking of synonyms. If you can think of them pretty quickly, that's fine. But if you can't, move on. Okay. So now we're going to think about the differences in meaning. So reduce the productivity, significant damage. So I think that's going to be the difference there. 50% less. Okay, that's very different from twice as much and more frequently. So think about the difference between those ones. So this is really testing your ability to understand the difference in amounts of stuff. And these are very different. So we don't really need to worry too much about those. But these ones, you would have to think about the difference between, A, B, C, D. You'd have to think about the difference here, and A and C, you'd think about the difference. Predict the correct answers. I think it's going to be A or C. I don't know for that one, and I don't know for that one, but I think it's going to be A or C. And again, if you can predict. If you can't, don't worry about it. Don't be like, oh, I can't predict. I won't be able to do it. Don't worry about it if you can't. Okay, so now we need to go up and find out where the first one is. So 1982, so that helps us find it really, really quickly because we've got 1982 here. The United States talks about the United States. So I think we found exactly what we're talking about. And this is an interesting one because it has all of the options in it. So you can see India and China, you can see meadow or forest, and then you can see this study. So talking about careful measurements have been done and discovered. So that's the study there. So what you can do with these ones is use elimination. So when you get 4 choices, and all of them are possibilities because they're all contained within, you can use elimination. So let's start off with the last one. Topsoil in India and China is vanishing much faster than America. Was almost as severe in India and China. Does this mean the same thing? No. So it doesn't mean that. So it's not that one. Meadow and forest could be reduced by converting land. Country subsequently embarked a program to convert 11% of its cropped land to meadow or forest. Does this mean that the study found that it could be reduced by converting cultivated land to meadow or forest. No, that's not what the study found. That's just the result of the study. The consequence of the study. That's what they decided to do because of the study. Doesn't mean that's what they found in the study. So let's remove that one. So obviously in the real test you'd just be marking these out. So now it all comes down to this. Reduce the productivity of farmland by 20%, was causing significant damage to 20% of the farmland. So let's have a look here. About 1/5, so that's 20% of its farmland, was losing topsoil at a rate likely to diminish the soil's productivity. So does it say reduce the productivity by 20%? Diminish the soil's productivity? No, it doesn't talk about productivity being diminished by 20%. It's like likely to diminish, so not given any figures here. 1/5 of its farmland was losing topsoil. Productivity was causing significant damage. So if you're losing topsoil, it's the same as significant damage, and it doesn't say anything really about the productivity being reduced by 20%. So it only leaves us with that option, because the other three are definitely not those ones. So it only leaves us with that option. And this one is quite interesting, because what might happen is it's not really apparent that that is the one. I mean, it's quite a difficult question, to be honest. And what you might do is you might start to panic and really look, and spend too much time on it. Each multiple choice question is going to be different. But if you get a multiple choice question like that, where you can just say, well, it's not D, it's not B, it's not A. Well, guess which one it is then? It's C. Even though it is not, it doesn't say exactly that. You have to really read into it. Be confident enough to put that in. Okay, so mid-1980s farmers in Denmark. Okay, mid-1980s Denmark. So we're just trying to locate it. Denmark, mid-1980s, 1985, Denmark. So it's this bit here. Okay. So we need to read it carefully. Fertilizer use doubled in Denmark in the period 1960 to 1985. Denmark used twice as much fertilizer as they did in 1960. So sometimes this is quite an interesting group of questions, because number 10 was really about elimination, whereas number 11, you don't need to eliminate anything because the answer is very, very obvious. So if we have it, double check again. Fertilizer use doubled in Denmark from the period 1960 to 1985. Doubled. Used twice as much as they did in 1960. So it is this one. It's because it means exactly the same thing. Because we don't want to be, checking this one and then checking this one and then checking that, and then you got, like, if it's obvious, just go with it. Which one of the following increased in New Zealand after 1984? So 1984, New Zealand. New Zealand, 1984, so we got the right part. So we need to watch this. So there are 4 different things here. Incomes, fertilizer, overstocking, diversification. So let's try and find those in here. Scrapped most farm support. So farm support is subsidies. That's when the government gives farmers money. Is that the same as income? Possibly. But it's talking about increased. Okay, so did income increase? No, so I don't think it's that one. So we're going to remove that one. Oh, I don't know why it's done that, but let me try and change that. Okay, so that's B, C, D. We've removed A. Fertilizer. A fall in fertilizer use. So is that an increase? No, that fall is a decrease, so we can remove that one. Overstocking. I don't really know what overstocking is, but let's try and find it. The removal of subsidies also stopped land clearing and overstocking. So stopped, to stop mean decrease? No. So it's not that one. So it is D, but let's double check. Farms began to diversify. So does it say anything about diversification? No. Farms began to diversify. So if you begin to do something, it means you didn't do it before and you're starting to do it. Is that an increase? Again, paying attention to what it actually says, that's the key. So that's D should be the correct answer. Let's have a look. So it should be C, B, D. Hopefully it is C, B, D. Okay. So as you can see, some of them you'll be able to pick immediately because it'll be really, really obvious, like 11. Some you'll have to eliminate the other ones. To be honest, these ones are quite difficult, so don't worry too much about them, but it was probably a good thing for the purposes of this lesson to have difficult ones. But you know, follow that system, follow that strategy, and apply it to real questions, and you'll see real good results. All right, let me know if you have any questions, anything that you've learned from that. Let me know in the comments below, and I'll get back to you. Thank you.